Hello, I'm just here to finish up the story here in Sinoalice. As you can see, I've done every chapter, and I know this is just Act 1. It's pretty, nothing special. But I just wanted to go through every character and kind of recap how things have went, basically, with every character and the story overall so far. So first we have Alice. Alice was pretty typical for a main character, I suppose you might say. Alice felt like she was tied down by her destiny, it seems, or maybe, she wants to be free. That seems like a really generic main character thing. But she seems to want to be free, and the only way she can do that is by killing her author, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, who knows what the killing the author part would ever mean in this story. I don't quite understand it, but it seems like that's what we're at least gonna try to believe for now. Now the next person is Snow White, and Snow White's also fairly generic. I'm sure that if you went from left to right, as they're kind of implying you should, you'd kind of gradually see how deeper the story is. Alice is the most simple, and then Snow White is the next simple, just a little more complex. But Snow White is basically just somebody who believes it's right to kill all the monsters, which is fine. But then what about when you run into some person that you don't like? Is it justice to kill them? No. So basically that's her entire story. It's kind of funny that that's it, but I don't know what else to say. So the next person is Cinderella, and she just hates everybody. Which is actually kind of fine. I mean, compared to the last two people, Cinderella is kind of a welcome change at this point. But that's pretty much everything to her. Like, yeah, anger is kind of more what I was expecting from the characters more, but then it ends up being that that's all she is, just anger. They call it depravity, but I don't really see how it would be considered depravity necessarily. I mean, yeah, I guess anger is just like the basic form of depravity. But anyway, I feel like I'm talking about this too long, because it's literally just she gets mad, or in general just doesn't like people, and so she wants to fight people all the time. That's Cinderella. The next one is Gretel, and I don't know if it's because it's the first one that I did, but Gretel is my favorite even now, because yeah, she's just kind of has repressed memories basically about killing her brother, but she's also got this nice insanity to her that I'm surprised that I like, because honestly I thought everybody was going to be just insane, or some type of insanity, but that wasn't the case. Yeah, she's the only one that you would say is like clinically insane, and again, repressed memories, and she's got violent tendencies basically, maybe more violent than most of everybody else, but yeah, overall I would say that there's more sides to the story compared to every other character up to now, which is just literally one note. It would be nice to see Gretel's brother Hansel return, or I should say come back, period. But I mean, it does seem like it's way more focused on being only about girls, so it is pretty unlikely, I would say. But yeah, overall I just really like Gretel. Next one is Sleeping Beauty. So this one was actually like the most bare bones uninteresting way they could have done it. I kind of just figured up to that point that like, yeah, they're probably just gonna have Sleeping Beauty be like, I want to sleep, but you won't let me sleep, so I'm gonna kill you. That's basically the entire story. It's kind of ridiculous, but I mean, you know, putting Red Riding Hood next to her was kind of interesting. You know, one's highly energetic and one's completely opposite, really low energy. But yeah, again, Sleeping Beauty just wants to sleep because she feels safe when she sleeps. Things are more complicated when she's awake. It's pretty uninteresting, honestly. Next one's Red Riding Hood. Red Riding Hood, it's funny because I thought that she would be a little more complex, but she ended up being way more of an ball of anger than even Cinderella. But for the most part, I would say, you know, there's some anger to Red Riding Hood, but it's mostly she just loves killing, and that's pretty much it. I mean, she just really likes to kill. She just really likes blood. It's kind of bizarre that she talked about killing the wolf, her grandmother, and the huntsman equally. You would think she'd have some affection toward her grandma or some affection toward the wolf, maybe, you know, because she's kind of crazy, or she'd have some affection for the person who saved her, but for whatever reason she just wants to kill everybody. I still respect that more than Cinderella, because again, Cinderella, if you saw a few of the minor side story stuff that I did, it seems like in the event for her, she might not really be Cinderella. She's just maybe the person. It's weird because they kind of implied that she didn't really have. No, she had the glass slipper, but she didn't care about the prince. Or maybe she stole the glass slipper from the real Cinderella. Or maybe the prince ended up choosing a fake Cinderella. It's kind of confusing, honestly. And considering these are all told in like, here's a sentence here, here's a sentence here, that doesn't help at all. But yeah, I would just say that that at least Red Riding Hood, you know what how she views everybody in her story, basically, because some of these focus on the story more than others. Like Snow White didn't really focus on her story at all. They didn't really mention anything about Snow White at all. In fact, I don't know what justice has to do with Snow White. It's very bizarre. Alice in Wonderland at least makes a little bit of sense. Freedom connected to imagining things in her head or whatever, however, which version you want to talk about it. But like the point is that she wants to do what she wants to do, which is what the core of the Alice in Wonderland story was. So it makes sense. Gretel doesn't really make any sense because Gretel just, like, apparently she just hated Hansel. Okay, I guess. And Sleeping Beauty, yeah, it's not even worth mentioning. I guess she just doesn't want to be a princess. She just wants to sleep and be left alone, if you want to call that an interesting idea. And then you have Kaguya, Princess Kaguya. It's weird, actually, that they call her Princess Kaguya, because, I mean, isn't Sleeping Beauty already a princess, and isn't Snow White already a princess? So why is Kaguya the only one that gets the princess title? Anyway, Kaguya is kind of interesting. They actually really, it's almost like they knew what they were talking about when they made her, because Kaguya, they reference, you know, her being born in a bamboo shoot, and they mention how people wanted to marry her, and they all failed at the task she gave them, which made them hate her. but like it seems like she genuinely just wanted somebody who would be strong enough to abuse her, which I guess is smart enough. I don't think there's much problem with that, I suppose, if that's what you want. But it seems very clear that the creators were much more familiar with her story than everybody else's, because everybody else's, they don't even address the movies, which are like, you know, cut down versions of the real thing, so it's even weirder. But yeah, with Kaguya, like, you know, she just was looking for a strong partner, basically. And that's about it, I guess. I guess that's about all there is to her. So then next you have Pinocchio, which isn't great. I know I'm just saying like, oh, a lot of these aren't great. It's like, well, I'll admit, this is Act 1. Here's Act 2. We'll just go over there and look at it real quick. So everybody doesn't have a part, at least yet. So, okay, interesting. You know, we're going to focus on Kaguya. We're going to focus on Pinocchio. This makes sense. And the main character, Alice. Now, I don't know why we're going to focus on Cinderella. I mean, I think other members, other princesses, whatever, would probably benefit a little more. But, you know, I mean, we can clearly see there's a lot of other spaces, including the new Little Mermaid that came out. So, I guess we'll just wait and see. Coming soon, as it says. But, Pinocchio is interesting. I don't like him. He's good, though. I don't like him, but he's good. So, Pinocchio was a wooden boy who was turned into a real boy by the good fairy, or whatever, a fairy. And so now he doesn't have his nose grow when he lies. Okay, that's fine. But then apparently once he got turned into a real boy, you know, he was supposed to kind of stop lying, but then he kept lying. So now, to make himself believe that he's in the right, he imagines his weapon is doing the decision making, just so he doesn't have to take responsibility for all the decisions he'll make. Which, I mean, mostly just sounds like a child. Like, okay, you're just a normal kid, which sounds fine to me. Of course, then they, you know, add the edgy, crazy part to it. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good. He even, you know, mentions liking Geppetto and not quite understanding the fairy's motivations to turn him into a real boy. I think maybe it's even mentioned like, well, why did they turn me into a real boy and not any other puppet? I only knew how to be a puppet before this, and then you guys said, no, it's better being human. Well, I don't know nothing about being human, so I hope that somebody will come along and tell me what to do. So he's kind of like regressing into being a puppet, which is pretty well done in my opinion. Like, notice how much I'm talking about like some layers to this story here, and I don't know why. It almost makes me think that maybe like Japan likes Pinocchio more. Oh, also another act for some reason at some point, I guess. But yeah, like it makes me think it's like, okay, Japan likes and knows Princess Kaguya, makes sense. But then like considering the second most that they talk about is Pinocchio, or you know, go into is Pinocchio. I guess they must really know Pinocchio really well compared to the rest of these. I mean, admittedly, there's not much you could say about Red Riding Hood, and I'm trying to think, like Sleeping Beauty, I don't think you can do much more. Like even the Disney movie's not very in depth when it comes to Sleeping Beauty's personality and motivations. She's just kind of like a girl who wants a happy life, and that's about it. And Gretel, I don't think that we ever really went into the personality of Gretel and Hansel and Gretel. It's weird to say Gretel and Hansel, but Hansel and Gretel. I don't think we ever went into their relationship, so I guess that's where there's a little bit of more complexness than you would expect. And then you have Cinderella and Snow White, which just feel like different characters. Like Cinderella especially, they're kind of hinting that it might be a different person. Where I'm not sure whether it's the person who went to the ball or if it's... Well, no, yeah, it'd have to be the girl who went to the ball. But maybe she's the real one that went to the ball, but instead the prince picked the person who didn't have the other glass slipper, maybe? Or maybe he's just plain resentful toward the prince for picking her just based on the glass slipper. It kind of seems like that might be the case. It's a little weird. And then Snow White, yeah, they don't mention anything. No dwarves. Nothing about the queen even, which you'd think that they would have went into, hey, it was a big injustice what the queen did to me, hunting me down, trying to take my heart. But they don't really go into that, so it makes me think that maybe the story is just really different. Like, I haven't read the actual stories. It does make you kind of want to check it out, but yeah, I haven't actually read the actual stories. And then Alice, I'm sure they're gonna go real in depth with her. Like she's the title main character that you always see, so I would assume that they have big plans, very specific plans about what they're going to do with her. But Act 1 done. Can't wait for stuff to begin. But in all seriousness, like, yeah, I really like the Kaguya and Pinocchio's meta, the deeper angles to them. But overall, I just like Gretel and Red Riding Hood as far as their design goes and how crazy they are. I mean, I was expecting crazy, and they gave the crazy. Kaguya and Pinocchio are actually kind of low on the crazy end. Kaguya is like 0 on crazy, honestly. And Pinocchio, he's kind of crazy, but like, it's justified. Like, it makes sense. I kind of like crazy people when they don't make sense. Kinda. We'll see in the next act.